I'm in the $99,000 Dodge Challenger Black Ghost, one of 300. Today, I'm gonna tell you how amazing this 6.2 liter is in this Hellcat derived Black Ghost. This car is nothing without its engine, so let's pop the hood. And we're greeted with some Mopar clips here on the front, and we'll go over the details on the outside, but we gotta go over the engine first, because that's what makes this Hellcat redeye derived Black Ghost so special. 807 horsepower, over 700 pound-feet of torque, made it to an 8-speed automatic transmission. We see this beautiful supercharger on top. We got the pulley going on. It is a beautiful sight to behold, also with the massive air intake there as well. This is my first Challenger, but not only that, it's my first Hemi product I've ever featured on the channel, and what a way to start it off with this Black Ghost with 807 horsepower. Fuel economy, well, I got about mid-teens driving out here to the middle of nowhere so I can have some peace and quiet and some nice straight roads to drive this vehicle. But let's put the clips back on because we don't want this hood flying off while we're doing, you know, quadruple digits on the highways. So let's get into what makes this vehicle so special and why it's probably worth the $100,000 price tag it's asking for. We mentioned one of 300. This is kind of like a modern day interpretation of a 1970 Challenger RT that roamed the streets of Detroit back in the 70s. There's a lot of things that Dodge has done here to make this a modern interpretation of that 70s legend, that Black Ghost. All right, so first of all, let's start with the Challenger script on the front. And also what is completely overdone by this beautiful old school throwback badge is this metallic SRT Hellcat badge. Like it definitely doesn't show up like the Challenger. Now inside the headlight here, you can also see a little Hellcat in there as well being illuminated. I love the double intake on the top of the hood. This thing just looks mean, and it's definitely gonna get a lot of looks, which it should for $100,000. Now, the Challenger in general has always been a gorgeous vehicle. It's been on the market for a long time now, but it is probably the most true to its original styling out of all the pony cars. 20-inch wheels on here with the Brembo brakes. These P0 Pirelli tires are, well, they're all seasons and they don't do this car service. So if you're getting this car, you'll find out when I do the drive that these tires just are not up to snuff to propel this 800 horsepower coupe. And how fitting for Florida that this Black Ghost has a gator skin roof to it. Looks awesome. And as we go to the back, we have the white racing stripes that go not only from the fender but around the vehicle. One thing I did miss is the addition of this Challenger script, this old school logo here on the side like we saw on the front grille. As we come around to the back, we have this big spoiler with, again, the script Challenger on here as well. I'll go ahead and play what this beautiful exhaust note sounds like. It sounds so mean, and when you're just idling, you know this thing is ready to get down and boogie. Now, with this being probably the biggest coupe I've ever been in, no surprise that the trunk in here is old school style, meaning absolutely enormous, and you also have the seats that can fold down. And guess what? We have a couple woofers back here for the Harman Kardon sound system. Tire inflator kit and the battery are in the back. No spare tire on this Hellcat. I sat in the back earlier. I'm not going to get back here for the review. We have the suede seats just like we have in the front. We actually have some vents back here to give your passengers some enjoyment because their legs are going to be smashed for sure. A couple cup holders here, but there's actually a ton of headroom back here, which is something that just doesn't happen in a coupe very often. Also a nice soft armrest as well. And you have mat pockets, which is great on each side. Beautiful SRT Hellcat badges here on these leather seats with the suede on the inside. And I love the black roofline on here. It's suede, it's super soft. We got a massive door here being a coupe, but we have that suede inside of the insert here. And we have some memory seats on the side. There's your Harman Kardon speaker. And you do have to slam these doors really hard to make sure that they're closed. All right, a lot going on in here. First of all, let's talk about the materials. They're actually pretty darn good. We have soft touch all across the dash with the stitching on it. We have that suede on the steering wheel, and the heated steering wheel in here works really, really good. Carbon fiber around the shifter and climate control area, a couple cup holders here, nice soft armrest as well. And we also have carbon fiber around the center screen, as well as the gauge cluster. Even your sun visors are coated in suede, very premium feeling. And we have a little sunglass holder with a foam insert there to keep it from rattling. And you just see how high this roof line is. Probably because people are driving this, they're going to be on the drag strip or the track, and you can easily have some extra room there for a helmet. Instead of SRT, I wish we had the Hellcat logo here, or maybe even a black ghost sort of signature icon, but SRT is okay. I'm not a big fan of the chrome, high reflective materials inside the interior. Luckily, this is about it, and maybe a little bit around the shifter. All right, behind the steering wheel is this really cool gauge cluster, and yes, let's just gotta love the engine note, and there's just so much information here. So what we're gonna do is go up to the performance gauge here. It has a 0 to 60 timer, 4.5 seconds. There it is. That is what I was able to get earlier. We'll try it here in a little bit to see if I can best that. And it's just hard for this vehicle to put down the powers we'll talk about later. There's also more information here with all your oil and performance gauges here, engine torque, engine power, air to fuel ratio, boost pressure, coolant, etc. Like, there's just so much information here. Obviously it's overload. Most people probably just have a speedometer up. And what about fuel economy? Well, I mentioned, well, it's been idling for about an hour now, so that crushed my 15 miles per gallon. Let's keep the speedometer here because we're gonna need that later as we're doing some acceleration. Now the center screen here, it's a bit old school. We don't have a widescreen. It's like a 4:3 format, but it gives me everything I need. When we're talking about climate control, I just put it on auto, but you also have additional ventilated seats in here, which work really, really well. But really what this vehicle is all about is the SRT button here, and that takes you to this customizable menu with all sorts of drive modes. So much information for the performance nature of this vehicle. What I've been doing though, and you can also customize your launch control, I just keep it at 1600 as we'll play with in a little bit. But what I've been doing is that I go to this custom mode here, and then I like playing with this screen right here that I can pick between the horsepower setting. Limiting it to 500 horsepower got me a 5.10 to 60. Again, just not enough stickiness on those tires to put down the power, but it won't let me put it into sport or track mode unless you're in the full horsepower mode. And also the street setting is definitely the softest here, but I like leaving this up because I like switching out the settings on the fly here. Climate control is extremely simple here, and I love that we have a rotary dial for fan control. We also have your volume dial as well as a tuning dial here. So everything is very simple, very easy to work with. I had zero learning curve getting in this vehicle other than all the like ridiculous driving modes and track information that you can pull up here. And the more time I spend here, the more details I see. I just saw this black ghost on the vent over here. I don't see it on any other vent. So yes, we do have that unique black ghost signature in this vehicle, and it has a little gator skin and background to it. Love it. I also forgot to mention we have a little glove box here that has just enough space for my drag meter and a couple USB-A's inside there, as well as an aux port. It just lets you know that this vehicle has been around for a while with an aux port. And my driving position in here is really high for my liking. I want the seat to be much lower, but unfortunately this is the lowest it goes. So my eye height is almost like, it's probably as high as like the beginning of this visor arm here, or maybe mid, rear view mirror. So I just wish it was a little bit lower. So I feel like I have a little bit lower center of gravity in here, but this car really isn't about cornering performance. Even though the steering in here is good, we're pretty communicative. It's still a really large, heavy vehicle, and it's just not that. It's not what this vehicle's designed for is a track. It'll do it. It'll do it just fine, but I'd rather be in something much more nimble with a lot less weight and power than this, and a much smaller wheelbase if I was going to take this in the twisties. But this is an amazing vehicle for everyday driving. if you can, you know, afford the, of course you can afford the 15 miles per gallon on the highway if you can afford a $100,000 vehicle. So that's not really an issue here for the buying person. And with all these settings on street, it's not overly stiff. I feel these seats like are really comfortable. I have all the amenities in here to me as well. It's a very comfortable car, and it's not overly loud unless, you know, your foot is buried, which obviously that's not buried because I'm in a town and I would be running into the bushes ahead of me or to the side of me if I didn't have traction control on. I'm never going to take traction control off in this vehicle, especially with these tires. I would be in a swamp somewhere. So let's just throw it around the roundabout here. And this is in street mode. It's its softest setting. Still fairly firm, but a good balance for the street. Looking at the windshield over the hood is an awesome sight in this vehicle. I love the double bubble that we get there from you know, the hood vents, and I can always see the hood clamp on this side of the vehicle as well. So one of 300, the last call. So there are 7 last call Charger and Challenger vehicles from Dodge, this being one of 300 of the Black Ghost, and this is the 6th of the 7. The 7th one will be available, or should I say announced, in March of 2023, which is next month at the time of this recording. And people are saying like 900 horsepower. Like, honestly, that's just insane, but this car's already insane to begin with, so you might as well just make it as just absurd as you possibly can. And I hope Dodge does it just for the sake of doing it, because the V8s are going away, and that's something that brings so much like happiness to me while I drive this vehicle. Even though it's not, you know, like I can't put down all the power, I still enjoy the sound of it, the smoothness of it. So now that we're getting out of town, you take your foot off the gas pedal, and allows you to put it into the more performance setting here. And then I'm going to do the sport transmission. I'm going to do, I guess we'll do street traction. I don't know how much that would change. I think I want the street on, to be honest, to be as safe as possible here. I'm going to put it on sport suspension and sport steering. And that's kind of the settings I like here for the straightaway. So I'm just going to roll onto the gas here. And that's, I can't even, I better put my backpack down because it's gonna be flying everywhere. That is not full throttle, ladies and gentlemen. I would say it's probably, do we have like a hawk in the middle of the road here? Yeah, he's getting his snack on. It's a beautiful bird. I don't know what, that could have been a snake. They like their snakes, but let's just roll gently into the gas. God bless America. And that's what this vehicle is. This is the ultimate homage to muscle cars and the American like spirit of freedom. Who cares about fuel economy? I have 800 horsepower under here, and even though it's a death wish, if you just like, I'm not going to mash the pedal at one point. The only time I do it is with launch control on, and of course like traction control on. But it's really satisfying to just slowly put your foot down into the pedal a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. It's just amazing. Now, I do wish maybe we got a little bit more of a, like an aggressive exhaust note on here. I feel like the exhaust note on the naturally aspirated LC500 is more satisfying. But when you're on the outside of this vehicle, I think it sounds better than when you're on the inside, which is the case for a lot of V8s. And once you get past maybe a quarter throttle, you go from a lot of V8 noise to a lot of supercharger whine, which I think sounds pretty good. But when you're just driving nice and casual, you don't hear that supercharger like I mentioned. Get onto the brakes hard here. Yep, it stomps pretty well. My foot wasn't all the way down either, but we're gonna go ahead and put it in a launch mode here. And we put the brake down all the way, quickly press full throttle. And it's just, I'm not, this road, not even like my Kia Niro last week could have put down the torque. So I'd even make it to 60 miles an hour there. So it just lets you know like the road surfaces are a massive issue when you're putting down this much power to just 2 wheels. This car will spin the wheels probably up to, I don't know, my guess would be 100 miles an hour if you don't have the right road surfaces. You're just fighting for traction, and these tires are not that great. And even with the 500 horsepower mode, these Pirelli Zeros just couldn't put down the power. gosh, this transmission's super fast. It feels even faster than like the Lexus Sport transmissions. I compare that because those have V8s and the RCF, and for example, it feels maybe just as fast as, let's say, the BMW ZF 8-speed transmission. And you know, there's the coppers right there, so I got to be on my best behavior now. Unfortunately, even though this is a Ghost, it is not invisible. The paddle shifters are pretty fun to use as well. There's 4th gear. It's just so much power. Well, it's better to have too much power than not enough, right? Driving on the highway, this stretch of road is kind of notorious for being kind of loud. And the ride in here is nice and smooth, of course, on the highway. Road noise, just a little bit. You hear more exhaust note than I would say road noise, even going at a steady state here. I do get some sort of wind buffeting noise. I don't know exactly where it's coming from. It sounds like it's coming more from this side of the car. But honestly, like, my ears are not tuned to that right now. They're just waiting for the V8 to come back to life. That supercharger whine feels like it's coming more imported from this sort of the cabin. It almost feels like it's bouncing off this window here. It sounds so cool. And little things like this you don't notice, but when you're driving, it's good to have your fingers to be able to rest on this little carbon fiber shelf right here to play with the touchscreen. Blind spots in here I don't feel like are absolutely terrible. We have a little window in the back that I can see out of, and the back windshield's pretty large here, so visibility for a coupe is probably better than average here. And as I'm backing the car up here, the backup camera takes up the full screen here, and we do have parking sensors in the back, which is great because you're going to be backing this into just about every single parking spot. Front sensors are really not needed. Maybe for the garage, like this barely fits in my garage. This thing is a boat, but it does. And so it's great because we kept this black paint color nice and clean. Just, you can't, you can never put down the power. It's just sad, you know. I feel like this vehicle needs better tires, like I said a million times, but that's what I'm constantly reminded of, because at a stop or anywhere under like 50, 60 miles an hour with a considerable amount of throttle, you just can't put down the power. And it makes me a little bit sad because I want to feel what this vehicle has to offer. And the only way to do that is the drag strip or the track. And I guess that's the case for most sports cars, but like, I guess, you know, if you find an empty parking lot and you have a Challenger or a Hellcat or a Charger, you can do burnouts and donuts and whatnot, and I guess that has a fun aspect to it as well. But really, you can't put down the power with the stock tires probably until you're well over 60 miles an hour and you're breaking the speed limit everywhere at that point as well. But this is a true American car. Excess in everything. Excess in power, excess in features, excess in price tag, excess in coolness and unique features to this black Ghost. And to me, the extra 300 horsepower is just icing on the cake. I can barely put down the power for the 500 in the nerfed mode. I feel like just getting a base Hemi is going to suit the needs of 99% of customers out there. And even though this is a limited edition, a lot of people are just going to, you know, chalk this into the every other Challenger on the street, because it really doesn't look that much different, which is good and bad, because the Challenger, in my opinion, looks amazing to begin with, even on the base models. It just doesn't give me that much additional flair. But on the other hand, it gives you a sort of classiness, sophistication, and retro styling that feels right at home on the Challenger as well. And the old adage reigns true. It's better to drive a slow car fast than a fast car slow. This is potentially the fastest car I've ever driven, but without the proper setting and compound on a tire, I can't extrapolate anywhere near to the 800 horsepower that this can lay down. Overwhelmed by the amount of power this vehicle produces, and underwhelmed by the amount of usability of that same power on a daily basis, especially with the stock tires. But I gotta end it there. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, it's not the most aggressive Hellcat redeye Black Ghost video out there for sure, but this gives you an idea of what you're dealing with on a daily basis. 15 miles per gallon on the highway. If you're lucky, you can do a 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds, given that the road conditions are good enough. And thank you to Dodge for sending my first Stellantis vehicle. I'm excited to branch out a little bit this year, try some new products. It'll definitely improve my ability to review all sorts of cars, not just the typical Japanese and Korean cars you see on the channel. And I love all cars. You guys might not know that, even though I cover mainly specific brands and makes and models. I love all cars. I think they all are interesting. They're all fascinating. There's just some that, of course, I find more valuable than others, of course. But I'm going to end it there. Thank you guys for watching. Signing out from the all-American SRT Black Ghost Challenger.